Welcome back to another episode of Just Giants with Grump and the Cranky Fan, the best damn podcast for the best damn football team. I am your host, the Football Grump. With me, as always, is Mike, the Cranky Fan, and are we celebrating tonight?
No, we have the Blues tonight.
Well, either way.
Both our hockey teams tonight. No, you won. I'm sorry, you're not.
I'm celebrating. I don't know what your problem is.
Yeah,
no, I'm in good spot.
Yeah, we yacked away another third period lead in a second game we lost in overtime. So, for all you people that couldn't wait to have a playoff series without the Lightning, this may be your chance. So,
Devils still hanging on. Played like absolute dog shit first two games. Started to sort of come alive Saturday. So I had a party here Saturday. It's my girlfriend's birthday on Friday. So we had
Grumpette.
Yeah, we had like 17 people in my tiny apartment. Most of us crowded around the TV for like the entire game. But going into overtime with a lot of people around was pretty fun. Yeah, and tonight too. I'm not big into shit talking this. This is kind of interesting because the Devils and the Giants kind of emulating a lot of the same, like similar traits to their season, where like teams on the upswing, young, getting better, years of early round draft picks finally accumulating at the right time, but just completely, they're like a year ahead of where I thought they would be. So this is all just enjoyable to me. I think I've said like multiple times, like I'm more excited for the fact that I think this is long term. Like the Devils and Rangers will be back and forth for another couple of years now. So
that's what you want.
That makes it fun. Yeah.
Repeatable, sustainable success. You're not putting all your chips in for one season. It's not a fluky thing. It's the start of something, and that's what makes it exciting. Like the first year is always like, whoo, this is cool. But then like next year it'll be like, okay, now I'm expecting it, and that's when it gets real. But now you enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and it's kind of what happened to the Giants. So they find themselves in this interesting spot now. News broke today the Giants signed Ashawn Robinson, big-time defensive tackle, to a one-year deal worth, I think, $4 million with a bunch of incentives that can accumulate up to about $8 million. That's from Art Stapleton.
And we've been talking about this for quite a while, too. Like, we sniffed this out about a month ago, and things kind of died, and it happened.
Yeah, he had said a while back, I want to say maybe at the beginning of the month, Art, that is, had said that visit went well. They just kind of walked away from each other. I thought that this signing was going to come after the draft and that second wave of free agency when you reassess your roster post-draft. It happened right before it, and I think that's a credit to this Giants staff getting themselves again set up for the draft. So Art went on to say that he doesn't think this means anything for the future of Dexter Lawrence and his extension and the work they're doing there. And it doesn't mean anything for the present for Leonard Williams. Big cap number regardless, they view him as part of this defensive line rebuild, or at least the current one for next year. And quite frankly, Ashawn Robinson and Leonard Williams, they're different kinds of defensive tackles, right? So you wouldn't really assume one for the other unless they were doing a massive shift in what they want the defensive line to do, which I don't expect.
I mean, this is part of prudent roster building, in my thinking. You don't want everybody who's a long-term prospect or anybody who's a short-term fix. You want to kind of stagger out, age, experience, salary situation, money, all over the place. So I just think it's just, we are getting to the depth building part of this roster, of this part of the rebuild. And I think guys like him are good for it.
I do wonder what Leonard Williams' future is here. Like, he's a good player, and you have to wonder if let's just hypothetical scenario. Okay. They're like 8-1. Okay, and the defense is like a top 7 defense in the NFL. Leonard Williams is having a good year. Do you just extend him midway through the year? I mean, is that even on their minds? Is that possible? Or are they just waiting? Are they just playing him off the books, and then once he's off the books, he's off the books? Because he's still kind of young.
Well, like I say with free agency, it takes two to tango. And if they are 8-1 and he's having a really good year, and he might say, you know something, I want to go to free agency, or something.
Well,
So
maybe. I mean, or, would he want to stay with a good team? I mean, would he rather go to the highest bidder after already making a lot of money, or continue making decent money with a contender
I would say
in New York?
I would say people primarily would go. There will be exceptions, but primarily will go for the money, and especially in a sport that is, as you have such a short shelf life, and the prospects for injury. Your next play could be your last. I think I would say more than likely he's going to try to get as much money as he can. That doesn't mean he's not a true giant or a real giant, or likes being here or dislikes being here. I think these guys, you know, that will probably be his last contract, and I think you go for the money. That's why in the scenario you are bringing up, where they're playing really well and he's playing really well.
But I mean, do you think it's on the Giants' mind to do something like that?
No,
No, you think they're playing him off the books?
I think a plan's a plan. I think because if they have a long-term plan for him, I think what's the delta from what they expect him to be as opposed to being that much better this year. I think they kind of have a plan for him regardless of what his performance is this year. So I don't think record or what he's actually doing, if his productivity is up over what it was last year or his career norms, I don't think it makes much of a difference.
So as it stands, the roster on the defensive line looks something like Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Ashawn Robinson, Nacho, DJ Davidson, and Ryder Anderson. That's pretty deep and pretty talented.
That feels like a nice upgrade from last year in the depth wise more than anything. Like, I'm not afraid now if one person gets hurt, what's going to happen right now.
That being said, Ashawn Robinson and Leonard Williams are only on for this year, I believe. So
Right.
that's kind of where, like, people, I saw, like, the reaction is like, well, the Giants aren't going to draft a defensive tackle. It's like, well, I don't think that's true. And so I kind of want to get into, like, general draft thoughts as we just kind of ramp this up. We're just kind of clearing up some news here. But, like, before we get to all that stuff, I'm just going to say, like, they're in a weird spot at the end of the first round where this is, I don't think, a draft where it's top heavy in talent. So, like, just strictly talent level, I don't think that there's, like, 30 first round draft picks in this class. So when you look at it that way, picking at 25, is it just possible that you are strictly picking for the future? I mean, not strictly, but you start to question the value there, right? I mean,
Right.
you're not going to shoehorn anything. I mean, in this draft class more than anything, I'm glad they haven't pushed themselves to the limit at any position other than center.
I think you're thinking more, looking at trading down and getting more assets, I think comes even more and more into play, I think.
That's kind of what I think is happening here.
I've kind of been hinting along at that all along and had a feeling that that's what they might do. We kind of went back and forth a little bit at a previous show about, we don't think they'd ever trade up, or we don't think there's anybody they love so much that they would move up a spot or two and give up an asset. But, in that kind of no man's land of 25, there might be more value in trading down and getting an extra pick somewhere, or be able to package an extra pick, something even down the line further. So I'm getting more and more of a feeling that that's what they might do.
Yeah, and I think when you frame the vision that way, I think the likelihood of a defensive tackle being taken in day one or day two is still at the same level it would have been.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I guess it probably went down a little bit, but not that much, because I think at this point you're not drafting for a ton of impact this year.
Yeah, I don't really feel you ever really draft for immediate impact.
Well,
And if
I
you're
would say, look, my personal feelings about the first round pick is if he is not first round talent, which means almost in every single position except for maybe quarterback, and I don't mean upside, I mean talent, day one talent, they
right,
should be a starter day one. You should be able
exactly.
to count on that. If they are not that, then they better be a developmental superstar. You have to like be
Anthony
pretty
Richardson.
sure that that's what you're going for in the first round.
Yeah, something that you project in 3 years, or Trey Lance, or someone like that, where because of circumstance he's not going to play day one, may not be ready to, but they have a vision for a guy
A
like him.
higher ceiling.
Yes.
Um,
And if that's the case, I don't know how many of those guys are around 25. It's almost like
well, there's typically
they're going
not
to be
many.
higher than that.
Yeah, typically at 25, you're either banking on a safe pick that probably value-wise belongs in the top of the second round, but that you have no shot at when you're picking in the second. You know what I mean? So you're either picking the safe guy that's like a little bit early, or
Right.
you're picking that upside guy. That's kind of, I think, your MO at a certain point in the first round. Most years, there's just not enough top end talent, and that's where the pivot happens.
Hmm.
Where you start to see things kind of go haywire is when you have bad teams try and force picks, things like that. And that can cascade a draft board. I don't know why we're talking about this anymore. Anyway, the point is here, we're going to get into general draft thoughts, but I think the Giants did a lot of really interesting things to put themselves in a good spot on draft night, which is good because I will be live on Talking Giants, and there's no worse spot to be when you don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
So I thought this was interesting. Art Stapleton tweeted out 28 of their top 30 visits. Okay, they only get these 30 visits with guys.
Okay.
So when you analyze the roster and fixing the team from a future standpoint in the draft, do you think they need more work on offense or defense?
Defense.
Okay. They agree with you, at least from the interview standpoint. Only 10 of the 28 people were on offense. 18 were defensive players. Which position would you say is the most dire need to be filled?
Cornerback.
Corner. Okay. Well, they apparently agree with you too.
Oh, how about that?
They had visits with 5 players: Joey Porter, Deontay Banks, Emmanuel Forbes, Darius Rush, and Trey Hawkins.
Okay.
I was surprised because, from my standpoint, offensive line is still really scary.
But let me ask you a question for the interviews.
Well,
Do you
wait, hang
feel-
on, one second.
Yeah, go ahead.
They only interviewed one center, one lineman, and that was John Michael Schmitz. But that's the only one.
So
So
I'm gonna answer this kind of like thinking outside the box a little bit. The interview, it's not a workout, right? It's an actual interview. They sit down with them. They have a conversation with them.
I thought it was a private workout with also that, but
Okay.
maybe I'm wrong.
So my thinking is the cornerback position is kind of a flaky position, and it's very tough to, it's harder to hit on a cornerback. And I think you want to bring in to understand someone's mentality, their makeup, their desire, all that type of stuff. Where, to me, like a lineman just goes out and does his thing. You could see the tape on him and you see, but like cornerback is something where you can be easily spooked if you get burnt. You have to have. They always say, the cliche is that, have no memory. The last play or anything. And I think you may want to bring these guys in to see what their makeup is as much of a position like that. Then, if they were looking for quarterback, they'd bring a lot of quarterbacks in because they want to see what kind of leader he is and how he, handles situations. If they were going for a middle linebacker, maybe something like that also to kind of understand what kind of a leader they are, how can they do things. So that was kind of my thinking why they maybe it's not a harbinger of like, oh, we're going cornerback or an answer of need, but more of a we need to get into these guys' skulls as much as seeing what they do on film.
So you mean from a positional standpoint, it just makes more sense.
Yes.
So okay,
The value of a in-person visit.
I'm gonna read through the positional breakdown, and
Okay.
I just want you to shout out anything that you think is interesting.
Okay.
So 4 wide receivers. That was the third most at a position.
I would expect. I would thinking of positions of need. Yeah, that's a big position of need.
Interesting is that they went Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Jalen Hyatt, and Marvin Mims.
Jalen Hyatt, huh?
Yeah, interesting. I don't see it with him personally. Just a lot of speed.
Yeah.
One running back.
Okay.
One offensive lineman.
Who is that lineman?
John Michael Schmitz, the center from
Okay.
wherever, Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Two tight ends and two quarterbacks, Hendon Hooker and Clayton Tune.
Hendon Hooker to me feels like one of those guys that he's brought in to be primarily a backup and maybe someday become a coach type of guy. He's pretty old. He's had a couple of serious injuries. I don't think he's ever, he ran a very intricate, almost gimmicky offense at Tennessee, but
stares down his receivers hardcore.
Yeah, I don't think you're drafting him necessarily to be a guy who's ever going to start for your team, but maybe some guy who's just, a smart guy, a mature guy that, maybe someday can be your number two.
So I'm a little bit beat up mentally, but I'm pretty sure if I didn't make that point, or I at least thought about that point, but I believe I made the argument that he's a consideration to draft just as a backup to Daniel Jones because he can move. He can probably run a similar offense in a pinch down the line
I think if
for cheaper.
I think if you slow down the Tennessee offense, it could look more like the Giants. I mean, they don't look the same, obviously, because they are running it like 1,000 plays a minute. It looks like watching Babe Ruth films from 1926, running around the bases. But I could see the transition where he could be effective in this offense.
I kind of agree with you. I think his real trajectory in the NFL is more Ryan Fitzpatrick, or maybe even Brian Hoyer, but somebody who just he overachieves as a backup and underachieves as a starter.
Hey, would you feel more comfortable having him as your backup than what we have now? I'm not too.
Tyrod Taylor? No, I'm comfortable with Tyrod Taylor because he's a vet. But athletically speaking, I mean, they're both not that good. I'm not gonna lie to you. But
yeah, I'm pretty out on Tyrod Taylor. So not so much from the physical standpoint, because every time we've seen Tyrod Taylor in a game, it's
just decision making, man.
I feel like he's auditioning to be a starting quarterback somewhere. It doesn't accept his role of being a backup quarterback. Where I think a guy like Hooker knows his role.
Maybe.
And
I don't know.
I mean, again, I talked to a friend of mine who went to Tennessee, he's a diehard Vol, and we were talking about his draft potential, and that's kind of also what he sort of thinks. Is like, this guy's never going to be, I don't think he's going to be a starter in the NFL, but he's going to have like a 9-year career just, getting jobs. And he might be on 6 teams in 9 years and play 15 total snaps, but he'll always get work.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, he might end up in the XFL or something too.
I just think if you look at the list of needs for the Giants, backup quarterback, I think is kind of low.
It is kind of low, but also backup quarterbacks go pretty low in the draft. So
yeah.
On defense now, they went 5 corners, 2 safeties. I'm counting Marte Mapu as a linebacker, so 3 off-ball linebackers.
Okay.
3 interior defensive linemen, and 5 edge rushers.
5 edge rushers, huh?
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting too.
That kind of jumped out at me a little bit.
So I think that speaks to Aziz.
I think we kind of saw the writing on the wall with him, from the middle of last year. And I think even when we did the breakdown on that position, you had said.
Well, I don't think there's any writing on the wall. I think he's injured for a second year. That's the first year he wasn't even hurt.
It's spray painted on the wall, and
that one can be washed off, I guess. Yeah. I mean, one year where he got injured, I think you could also see it coming. He put on a ton of bulk really fast, and that to me just sounds like in the short span between the end of your rookie year, a young guy, because he is young and still growing, he's able to throw that weight on. But I just don't feel like your tendons and that, I don't think it can keep up with that. It just doesn't. You put it on too fast to be at breakneck speed. So I think you could see it coming anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting though. Five edge rushers and 3 interior defensive linemen is a huge overload on the defense that I didn't expect such an investment on the visits there. But the visits, they could be just to throw off other teams. So
That's true too. I mean, we were playing shell games with everything involved with the draft. Maybe bringing. I mean, that'd be kind of shitty sending somebody out on a private interview just to kind of throw off other teams. But
well, I mean, I think at some point you're also doing a full due diligence. You might surprise yourself.
Right.
But I mean, what I mean is, maybe going 5 corners is showing your hand to other teams that you want corner more than you actually do. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe they want a corner and they're interested in all 5 of those because there's a legitimate chance that all 5 could be on the plate for them. Right. But the reality is they're not that interested in corner. Maybe it's a scenario that comes up, but they just want other teams to think it because it makes sense and they can do what they really want. Whatever.
Exactly. Makes sense. Makes total sense.
Some interesting names that I saw up there. I'm just going to shout out the names, but the actual guys I want to talk about, I'll talk about. So Flowers and Addison at wide receiver. They went for the TCU running back, Miller. I thought that was interesting. And the reason why I thought that is because I don't really know that much about him. I haven't scouted him. So I just watched 2 quick games. These aren't real notes, but things that I just noticed is that he is shifty and he's a good running back with like decisive cuts and he's got pretty good vision. But where he really stood out to me was as a blocker, and I thought that was pretty interesting. That is a known Saquon Barkley weak spot, although last year I thought he had improved on that pretty well. The offense also helped. But I don't really know that they have anyone on the roster that's particularly good at that. At the running back position? I don't think so.
I don't think any of those other guys are,
I think Brightwell is probably okay. But this is a better running back than Gary Brightwell, in my opinion. Right. So, interesting thought there. The 2 tight ends are 2 completely different kinds. Okay. Luke Musgrave from Oregon State is much more athletic receiving tight end. Payne Durham from Purdue is a Mark Bavaro slow bruiser that just doesn't go down. I thought that was just wild on its face.
Let me ask you something about tight end for a minute.
Go for it.
Do you feel they're going to try to get more of a tight end that's more of a blocking tight end because they're waiting for Evan Neal to fully develop, like it's almost like a short-term solution, and then maybe, once Evan Neal, kind of grows into the role of right tackle, that they may try to get a different type of tight end?
I don't know because so hear me out here. These are 2 of my favorite tight ends in this class, and they are completely different. And I think when I initially did tight end review, that was before the Darren Waller trade. So we were talking mainly about, who is the tight end we drafted last year? He was huge for us. Bellinger. We're talking mainly about Daniel Bellinger and how he is a pretty good receiver and a pretty good blocker. He is just all around pretty good. And that kind of allows them to do one or the other. So
it doesn't
I would normally say with the addition of Waller, they could fully complement everyone by going with more of a blocker, right? So then you have your in-between who can do both. You have your strictly blocker, which, by the way, Payne Durham, when he catches the ball, he really can't be tackled. So he's not like a schlub in the open field. He just doesn't separate. Right. And then you have your Darren Waller type that's like you're basically a receiver. But also, like, Darren Waller, just like everything else, he came with, like, an insurance policy. He's really only, like, a 2-year deal, isn't he?
Yeah, and also, he gets injured a lot, too. How much is he going to be on the field?
So, I think, again, it comes down to they probably like some guys that are more receivers, and they probably like some of the guys that are more blockers, and they'll just assess on draft day. Because I think, like everything else, they've put themselves in this position to be flexible with the plan. Let the draft board come to them.
Yep.
I think
you're right on. I think you're spot on.
Another one I thought was interesting was cornerback Trey Hawkins. He's one of the few guys on here I didn't know jack shit about. Really had to look him up. Corner from Old Dominion. And I was actually really impressed, dude. I threw him in only after watching 2 games. I just threw him temporarily into my big board for day 2 prospect.
What conference is Old Dominion in?
that the AAC?
I don't even think they're that high.
They might be, with like Tulane.
Maybe they are. They are in the Sun Belt.
So okay, so they're Sun Belt. So they're in with like Troy.
That's a low. Yeah, that's Liberty, Coastal Carolina. That's halfway decent. Georgia Southern.
Isn't Louisiana in that conference? Louisiana Lafayette.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Never mind. I thought they were Sun Belt.
I should know. My coach went there.
I thought they were Sun Belt, but whatever. It really doesn't matter. My point is that he's a 6'1" corner who's 190 pounds. That's a little bit light, but he also ran a 4.39 at his pro day. That's insane. Really long corner. He looks way more comfortable in man coverage than he does in zone, and he really likes to mix it up in the run game too. He's really good in run support. I could see him fitting into a wink system. Now, I didn't. This isn't like real scout work for me. I just watched 2 games. That's not enough for me, but definitely caught my eye. A name that I had not seen at all. Interesting. They checked out Gervon Dexter.
Oh, okay. So Gervon Dexter, obviously a Gator. It's kind of hard to evaluate him because if you watch the tape, because of the lack of talent and depth around him, he was being double teamed every single play, and he played almost every single down. So ideally you want to give the guy a blow for a play or two, or even a series or two, and because he was their best defensive lineman, he played a lot and got most of the attention. So you tell me from watching the film, can you see the potential, the green shoots of somebody could be more than what his numbers might have showed him for being at Florida?
So, yeah, actually I can and I will. So today, this is Tuesday that you guys are listening to this. It's Monday night right now as I'm speaking, and no, it's Tuesday morning because it's after
Tuesday
midnight.
Morning. Happy Tuesday, Grump.
Yeah. My plan is to, by 6:30 p.m., have another ranking video on my Football Grump channel of defensive linemen, and I had a special highlight for Gervon Dexter. So here's a little preview for that if you're going to check on that.
Very nice.
Which, by the way, I uploaded today at 6:30 p.m. I uploaded like a defensive backs video, and I was so proud of myself, man. I had all my work done. I did that on like my lunch break, and then as soon as I was done with work, I edited the thing. I had a Twitter promo ready. I scheduled tweets. I scheduled the video. I went to the gym, and I looked at the TV at the gym, and I'm like, it's scheduled for 6:30, and it's like, oh, 7 o'clock's the hockey game. Literally nobody's gonna watch it. So
dipshit,
moron. In any case.
Stupid.
Gervon Dexter. All right, so my biggest thing with Dexter is he is very visibly slow off the ball, like the last guy in the defensive line to react to the snap. That being said, just about everything else shows up. I mean, like you said, he gets doubled a lot, and the highlights from 2022 for him are not super dominant or anything like that, but he clearly has NFL strength. I mean, he is tossing SEC linemen around.
He was a 5-star recruit. He was a big time. He was probably the highest rated recruit in the Dan Mullen era at Florida.
I think he's still really raw. I don't know that much of his backstory, but he is not overly experienced in football, right? Like, I think he only has like 2 years of high school ball and nothing before that, right?
Yeah, and all of a sudden he just, because of his size, all of a sudden just became one of those, recruiting darlings, and yeah.
So I think what you have there is a really high upside. You have a dude who's already at NFL strength, and he has like a natural instinct to use leverage to his advantage, understand where to place his hands and stuff like that. Like that stuff, I think he just knows intuitively. I don't know if maybe he has like a wrestling background or something, but neither here nor there.
He's the type of guy that...
It's just like, it's the little things, man. Like, he doesn't know how to hand fight. He doesn't have a ton of moves. Like I said, he's slow off the ball. But, like, that... If he develops that stuff, like, he can be, like, a disruptor in the middle.
And the good thing is, on a team like this, we're not asking him to go... If you drafted him to be, like, day one starter. He can be worked in the rotation, get a year or two of good coaching, and away we go from there, especially if, we don't have a Leonard Williams on the team in 2024.
Right, and that's kind of where I'm hinting at. Now,
Yeah.
like the other thing too to note is that, and like you can correct me here because you've clearly watched more of Gervon Dexter than I have, but
Player too. Yeah.
so like I said, he's slow off the ball. He's not a particularly fast defensive lineman either, but none of that seems like a motor problem with him, right? You never get that problem,
No,
like
not at
thought.
all. Not at all. To me, it was just like a guy who just, some people just look exhausted and just like a lot of miles on the tires.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looked like to me
That's
too.
kind of what it felt like to me, especially you got the second half of the year. It's like this guy, and again, a lot of miles on the tires. You're probably going pro next year. Your team sucks. All those things may not give you the most pretty tape, but it's not because of, like, I would say, lack of motivation or lack of motor or lack of being lazy. It's just it's a 20-year-old high school kid who's a college kid who's has a future ahead of him.
So when I look at this list of guys in the top 30, and now the top 30 don't have to do like with the first round pick whatsoever. I mean, they can just be guys you want for a private visit, and then probably most times it won't be. I want to say there's 4 guys in this list. 5. Well, so there's like Flowers and Addison. Those are first round guys.
Okay, I didn't know where you're going with this.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm counting as I'm getting.
There's 4 guys. Well, actually, there's 30 guys. But
So Flowers and Addison, those are first round guys. I've made the argument that you could reach for John Michael Schmitz. Like I said before, you're picking in the back half of the first round. It's not a top heavy draft. You take a safe guy. I could see John Michael Schmitz being the guy.
Okay. And you're not alone in that.
Yeah, I don't think I'm alone in that. Joey Porter, Deontay Banks, Emmanuel Forbes, Darius Rush. I don't think anyone in the media has any fucking clue how to grade a cornerback because I've seen all of them in the first round, and they might all go there, but like, I don't know, man. I don't see all of those guys. To me, there's maybe Deontay Banks is a first round pick, and Joey Porter is a first round pick. I could see those guys. Apparently, Emmanuel Forbes is everybody's favorite, even though he weighs like 160 pounds soaking wet.
I feel like these guys are cycling in and out of the first round because there's so much time and so much to talk about with this
I think that's really it. And this is where we start hearing the rumors too, where it's like, here's what I'm hearing: NFL GMs and scouts are way higher on than the media, and then like on draft day, it's like, duh, like
yeah. I was at an event tonight. I was at a Gator event. Met Coach Napier and Brandon Olson, who does Locked On Gators and also works for Patty Traina. Does a lot of video work for her and everything. And we were talking at the event, and we talked about this exact same thing. So we started talking about the draft, and it was just like, there's draft fatigue, and it's just, you can only sustain a story for so long or a storyline for so long before you want to go to the next storyline. And this kind of feels exactly like what we're talking about with these guys. So many of these guys are at some point, considered first round picks, but let's do like a diagram of when they were considered first round picks compared to everybody else.
It's so annoying because there's there's the legitimate trajectory of why this happens. It's the beginning of the draft process. Everyone's done the top 50 guys, and so there's an outline of the top 50. The organic way that this happens is that as you dive deeper into schools and deeper into prospects, you find one guy that is undervalued because of X, Y, and Z, and he shoots up boards as more and more people understand it. What you actually have now is this like contrived media thing, because you have people like Mel Kiper, there's a whole job is to do the draft. So don't tell me the week before the draft you discovered some fucking guy. No, you knew all along. The first like 18 mock drafts he puts out are just horse shit for your clicks.
Of course.
So like,
and then like
18,
he's never going to say from mock 17 to 18 I'll have the same first round. He has to change it by nature of the fact that it's something different.
But his end goal is still to be right, as close to right on draft day as possible. So like those last like 5 are at least worth paying attention to, but like it just feeds this whole culture where everybody else ends up doing the same fucking thing, and it's just I don't pay attention to any of it anymore.
His goal will be to be right when ESPN finally goes back and fact checks their people. Like the day they actually on Saturday night go back and say, well, Lee Corso was 2-7 on his picks, or Herb Street was 9-3 on his picks. It doesn't matter. There's never, ESPN's especially guilty, but all the media is, and I guess you could say us as being little doofuses also, but like there's no accountability for making picks. Kuiper has his final mock. He has these 32 guys, and he might be wrong on 28 of them. Nobody ever says, hey, Kuiper was wrong on 28 of the 32. It just goes off into the ether. Lee Corso puts on a headset for Ohio State or whatever, and Michigan beats them. Like, nobody even remembers.
I think at this point, Lee Corso is not really entirely sure what planet he's on. Like, not even making a joke. Genuinely speaking, for his health.
But any of these, like, if you watch CBS, the pregame coverage of the NFL, and they have 13 people on the screen before each game making their 13 picks. When did they ever say, at 7 o'clock as they're wrapping up the day's coverage, oh, Phil Simms was 10-2 today, or they never do that. It's all for clicks. So don't ever take seriously what these guys are. They're in it for entertainment. They're in it to clicks. They're in it to make money. So
gun to your head, first round pick. What do you think is going to happen? What are they aiming for? Give me a couple of thoughts. First round pick.
Gun to my head, they're trading down into the second round.
Gun to my head, I think they've set themselves up to take what falls while still offering a trade to whoever is silly enough to reach. Like I said, I think they're either going to, and I think they're safe. So, like, I think a corner, an edge rusher, a wide receiver is going to plummet. And that's one pick they might make. A Zay Flowers, a Jordan Addison, one of those guys could fall.
There'll be a run on something else that will cause some of those guys to bump down.
Yeah. Joey Porter falling for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Those are guys I could see them snatching up. I think they're probably going to try to trade down. And if they have no partner and there's none of those guys fall to them, I think the safe pick, I think it's John Michael Schmitz. It's the only one that they actually have to get. And, I think that there's a chance that there's a run on interior offensive linemen at the top of the second round. And by the time they pick second round, their fucking guys are off the board and they are fucked for this year.
That is my pick, and I wrote it down.
There you go. I briefly saw that.
Yeah, that was my kind of,
Did you write it down at John Michael Schmitz or nothing or whatever? What's the Vontae Mack quote?
Yeah. It's on my little Post-it.
You should tweet that on draft night. You should draw it out and then take a picture and tweet it.
I might have watched it on the plane this weekend.
Again?
So here's my thing on planes, real quick. Is like I can't watch new movies because I have no attention span. I need something that's just noise in the background. It's like listening to your favorite album. It's just I just hear it and it's on. So, Casino's on, Goodfellas is on, and so for some reason Draft Day is in that mix. So, with it being draft week coming up, I just felt it was,
There you go.
Yeah. Eating my pancakes. So.
That's kind of how I think that first day is going. I think with this draft, the bulk of the players, I think this is a good draft. I just don't think it's a good first round. A lot of the talent I think is log jammed into day 2. I think there's a ton of day 2 talent that will spill into day 3. So I think trading down is what they really do want to do. I think they would rather get the hell out of the first round and accumulate stuff on day 2. And if they can, get a pick for 2024 in the process.
Let me ask you, Grump. I don't like doing the, what would make you mad, because nothing's gonna make me mad in the draft unless we, do something.
I'll be mad if we trade down because I'll have schlepped my way to Manhattan to do nothing.
I'm sure Bobby and Justin would be really pleased to hear that. Your company.
Good point.
But I mean, everybody, the overreaction for like, oh, I'm so. No, you're not. You're still getting a good player. It may not be what you wanted or what you predicted, which makes you mad, but. But my point of this is, what would make you the happiest? If, you had one pick, what would make you the most excited as a Giant fan moving forward into,
So, like, it doesn't have to make sense. It just would make me personally feel like the internet.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense, but, like, be reasonable. Like, not
right. No. I think this is a completely legitimate thing. People have mocked it, but Zay Flowers for me, I think, is the most exciting one. I think you could make good arguments for John Michael Schmitz would make me the happiest from a logical standpoint. I think Joey Porter is a close second for exciting player to pick in the first round. I would say even Sidney Brown. I don't know that he's really a first round player, but if you're going to, maybe they trade down but not out of the first round. Maybe they end up picking like 30th or something. Those are guys that I think are exciting. Zay Flowers, Sidney Brown from Illinois, and Joey Porter.
John Michael Schmidt or Osiris Torrance. If we can get on day one a really good offensive lineman, that means we have a pedigree of three, high quality first round guys on the offensive line who are all young, who are all still on rookie contracts. That would make me the most, because I feel like if you really wanted to get a really good receiver, you can get one. You can make a trade. Something can happen to get him. I don't think it's really, really hard to get good offensive linemen.
I think so too.
They don't grow on trees. They're not trade assets. I mean, when was the last time a really good offensive lineman was traded? And you hear like every year a really good wide receiver. Like look at the Eagles last year. Look at all these different teams, Buffalo. All these teams. If you want to make a deal for one and you want to give up some assets, you can do it. It's just really hard to get really good offensive linemen. So I know everybody really wants, the whole argument for the whole offseason before we re-sign Daniel Jones is how good is he? He didn't have any weapons. And I get that, but weapons are only so good if you don't have a good offensive line to protect your quarterback and to run the football.
Well said, man. I'm excited for draft day. I'm gonna be in Manhattan with Bobby Justin and I think Robert Schmitz. I believe is going to be there. He's been down to the Senior Bowl with us. Smart dude.
I might try to crash the party. I don't need to be on the show, but I might just crash to hang out.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure what your plans are for the night, but that's where I'll be, so you can watch that on the Talkin' Giants YouTube channel, and I think the JM Football channel. I don't know.
Yeah, and those guys are great guys. I mean, there's a great chemistry, obviously, with the two of them. You all love that show, and when Grump's on it, it's a lot of fun, too. And
yeah, that's like a fun hangout. I mean, I have my stuff. I'll be prepared to talk about whatever, but this weekend to me is like a huge payoff. Like I'm looking at it more as like a party.
Well, I mean, it's finally all the work you've done, and Grump, I got to give you all the props in the world. I mean, you put in so much time and effort, and it shows not only on this show but on your YouTube channel when you're on Talking Giants, when you're on other shows. I mean, you do the work that professionals are doing, and if I did the blind taste test on watch this analyst and watch some schmuck who's on ESPN, there's really not much of a difference. So you've really grown as a draft specialist, and this is your weekend to kind of, I wouldn't judge yourself or anybody watching this who has a mock draft, judge yourself on how accurate you are, yes or no, because the draft takes weird things. Somebody gets picked in pick 4, which nobody expected, and everything gets jacked up. A trade happens and everything gets screwed up. I think let's and don't overreact. The first guy we get is not going to Canton, most likely, and the guy you didn't want is not the worst piece of shit ever. So let it play out.
Great draft mantras.
I like that. I try.
Yeah, no, and so I was like, oh man, this is my first time like publishing like a lot of my work where. I might write something in. It's like, oh, that was a bad take. I totally whiffed on that guy. Like, that's going to be brought to light now. And I was like, well,
did you?
A, I don't care. And B, I pride myself in that I'm not trying to go for an accurate mock. I'm trying to go for an accurate eval. So,
wait a minute.
I won't really know how I did until like 3 years from now.
First of all, when some motherfucker starts paying us to do these shows, then we really start worrying about that.
That's a good point.
But more importantly, just because somebody's picked in a different spot doesn't mean you blew the evaluation.
Right, that's what I mean. My eval.
You're like, if you think, wow, this guy, he's not very quick. You're talking about you're talking about Dexter, for example, and he gets drafted. Let's say he gets picked 15th, and you didn't expect him to be that high, and he sucks. well, maybe, something, Grump, your evaluation actually was pretty accurate. Those imbeciles
Right.
evaluated wrong, or it just didn't work out. So I wouldn't be harsh on yourself that, you just had a different opinion of what they did, and it'll bore out when that guy either signs his second contract or moves on or is cut or God knows what.
Yeah, man. So I'm excited for this weekend. I can't wait for this weekend to happen.
I mean, Jesus Christ! I mean, this weekend is insanity as it is. We have, we have the Knicks potentially going to the round 2. All of us have hockey teams that are still alive as
the Devils Rangers is that draws so many Giants draft eyes.
Oh yeah,
so many Giants draft eyes.
I mean, I would love to. I have to go to Indy this weekend for work, but we have to figure out something, and this is something we'll talk about with the Talking Giants guys and all of our the people that that we're always texting in our group chat with, that we need to have a watch party for all of this shit. I mean, we're all loosely affiliated, whether we're all Giant fans, but there's a lot of Knick fans in that group, and the Net fans will just go and see what real playoff basketball is like and all that stuff. But we definitely need to do something. So hit us up on Twitter if you want to meet up with us and watch any of this stuff, whether it's the draft or any of the sort of playoffs, or if you want to watch the best team in baseball. I'm always up for a Rays game too.
Next week we will have our regular Tuesday episode. We will recap the entire draft. On my channel next week on Football Grump, I will have individual breakdowns on every player of the Giants draft. I know that is more of an NFL channel, but it will still be a Giants highlight because I'm a Giants fan and it's my channel. So how about that?
Grump, question, do you want to go Sunday night so we can have the show ready Monday morning?
Maybe. That sounds like a good idea. It's going to depend on how I feel Sunday.
That's true.
I don't want to commit to that, so
I will be in Indianapolis after a huge meal at St. Elmo's Steakhouse. If you've ever been, if anybody who's been there for the Super Bowl knows that place is the shit. So that's my meal Sunday night.
Lucky bastard.
Yeah.
In any case, whether the show is Monday morning or Tuesday morning, be sure to follow us on Twitter at @football_grump, at the Cranky Fan, at Just Giants Pod, so you can find out when that episode actually is, or if you're subscribed on YouTube or SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, etc., you'll just get it in your feed and you'll know right away. So
and where do we find your show, your YouTube show?
My show on YouTube is just Football Grump. I can put the link in the description below here. I have a new episode on defensive backs that came out Monday, and hopefully by the time you're listening to this, at the end of the day, there will be another one on defensive linemen. Hopefully the day after that, I'll have one on edge rushers, and then I'm going to try to have posted Thursday morning my big board or my top 50 or something like that.
I mean, there's only 2 shows right now where I can't wait for the next episode. It's Secession, and it's the Football Grump Show. Those are the 2 that I'm ready. I have my popcorn. I have the lights turned low. I'm focused.
The picture of mom is pushed down.
Exactly. I put mute. I turn my phone off so no one will bother me. No spoilers from anybody.
Throw on a little Manilow and just watch.
Oh, Mandy.
All right, we will see you all next week after the draft. Hope you guys enjoy the draft, and we'll see you then. Go Giants.
Go Giants.